topic, which is this whole Friday the 13th thing. So I don't know if y'all heard about a lot of what's going on Friday the 13th. Me personally, I'm a huge horror movie fan. I love horror films. That's like one of my favorite things to do. I watch horror movies all year round. Shudder is like one of my go-to channels. And plus, I tend to buy in a lot of horror movies. If, on HBO Max or whatever the hell it's called, they have a whole Friday the 13th library up there. I think the only thing they don't have is the remake that came out 15 years ago. But all the Friday the 13th up there, and every now and again, I love to revisit it. One of my least ones that I don't really visit often is the first one, because it's like we already know the twist about Pamela and all the other stuff. So I particularly don't care for that one. But I have my go-to favorites. I love the final chapter is one of my favorites. I actually love part 2 also. I kind of look past the whole sack on the head, potato sack mask, or whatever the hell it was called. Like, that was a little silly, but I do like some parts of that film, and I actually like the lead, Jenny, and all other stuff. But I'm a Friday the 13th man, so I would say the final chapter is one of my favorites because, Corey Feldman was up in there, and, that was the introduction of Tommy Jarvis. I also love part 6, Jason Lives, because, of course, Tommy Jarvis is older, and I thought the actor they picked to play him, who was it, Tom Matthews, I think was his name? He was a cutie, he had a cute little butt and them tight jeans. In the 80s, they was always wearing tight jeans up in them days. But anyway, so nevertheless, I love that one because they was able to merge horror with comedy, and they balanced it out and made it work. And plus, first of all, they had Ron Palillo, TV, Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter. I think he passed away. That show was before my time, but I did watch reruns when I was a little kid because my parents had that stuff on the TV or whatever. So that's how I'm aware of Welcome Back, Kotter and all the other stuff. I was old enough. I don't even think I was alive when that show was on. Because that was like way in the 70s. But anyway, so that's like one of my favorites. I don't even mind part 7. The Tina character, the way they wrote her was but I did like the sidekick angle. And in my opinion, my favorite Jason is Kane Hodder. I just love the way he embodied that role with the way he would breathe and all the other stuff. So anyway, let me stop my little favorite Friday the 13th rants, because apparently what's been going on, we were supposed to be getting a prequel. The prequel was announced back in 2022. It's 2 years later. Still don't have it. I get, we've been having issues with, like, what do you call it? The writer strike, actor strike. There was a bunch of things going on. They've been trying to develop this thing. Bryan Fuller was the showrunner behind it. He was supposed to be he was showrunning it. He did Hannibal. He also does, I think he also is behind that show, Dead Boy Detectives, if I'm not mistaken, which I actually like. That's a really good show. It's a little mindless fun. And also he did Sandman. So I like all the visual aspects and stuff of it, but when I first heard about this whole thing and they were trying to make it about Pamela Voorhees and her whole backstory, I was looking at it like, huh? First of all, Pamela is the least interesting aspect of Friday the 13th. Once that twist in the first movie is out of the bag, I don't think people really care that much about her character. Now, don't get me wrong, Pamela is the motivating factor for Jason, but for the most part, I don't think hardcore Friday the 13th fans give two shits about Pamela Voorhees. I didn't understand. I don't know what they were planning on doing, but halfway through developing this damn thing for 2 years, all of a sudden, Peacock came to a decision where it was just like, okay, we don't want to move forward with Bryan Fuller's vision anymore. Which I'm like, first of all, don't y'all come into a room and when you decide to develop something, you come in with a presentation, some storyboards, whatever the case is, and like, okay, this is the idea that I have for a show, and this is what I want to do with it. And then the studio was like, yay or nay. Like, I thought that's usually how things go. I didn't know that y'all just give people money, be like, okay, do whatever. And then, when you're done or halfway through it, then that's just look. Like, I'm not just throwing away money like that. And it just feels like a lot of these studios have been doing that lately. Y'all just throwing money at whatever and thinking we just gonna watch it. And then halfway through, y'all realize, okay, so we just wasted millions of dollars on this. And then y'all want to hike up streaming prices and have us pay for y'all fuck ups because y'all don't take the time to look at all this. So it's just a downward spiral. And then we as a consumer end up suffering. So now the whole thing that's come out because Jeff Snyder announced, he's like a inside Hollywood scooper. He's, appeared a couple. I remember he used to be on Collider back in the day, and I've recently been seeing him making appearances on the John Campea show. I think in the last 2 weeks I've seen him appear on the John Campea show. Shout out to John Campea. I do like his show. But Jeff Snyder recently made a thing on social media where it said that they had canceled the Friday the 13th situation. He didn't know necessarily all the details, but he had heard rumblings that they canceled it. Then I think it was like less than 24 hours. A24 and them announced, okay, we are not getting rid of this thing. We're retooling it. Then the next day, Bryan Fuller, who was the showrunner, announced that he's done. He's no longer part of the whole situation. So it said that so now because apparently A24 wants to go in a different direction. So Fuller said the following. He said, adapting classic horror is something that I have. Wait, hold on. Let me actually do y'all this favor and pull up what he said so y'all can see it. You know, this is like my favorite iconic shot from Friday the 13th, by the way. So, okay. So, wait, where to go? Oh, so he said, adapting classic horror is something I have some experience with. These shows require a vision that elevates and transforms as well as delivers what audiences have come to expect, which is an ambitious and risky endeavor. It requires people to take a leap with me. When it works, as with Hannibal, the results can be powerful for the storytellers and the audience. I could be more proud of the work my co-showrunner, Jim Danger Gray, and I were able to accomplish with our brilliant writing staff despite the challenges we face. For reasons beyond our control, A24 has elected to go in a different way with the material. We hope the final product will be something Friday the 13th fans all over the world will enjoy. Now, I was actually wondering, I'm like, okay, so what exactly were they trying to do with this franchise that was going to take it in a different direction? Now, with Hannibal, I will say this. I did love the Hannibal franchise when it was on NBC. I don't really feel like NBC knew what to do with that show because they were taking some risks with that. So I will applaud a major network for taking a risk in regards of like the visuals and blood and all that kind of weird twisted stuff that they were doing with the Hannibal series. And I just felt like it was on the wrong damn network. Like Hannibal to me seemed like a type of show that should go on a streaming service. Although now I'm starting to notice streaming services are starting to act like major networks, especially when they out here editing out booze from Kim Kardashian. We're gonna get into that story next, where I'll leave that for that. So I'm always thinking like the reason why people go to streaming services is to get something different that you wouldn't get from a major network because major networks are beholden by the FCC and there's certain things you can't say or you can't curse and you can't show blood, or you can't show gore, you can't show nudity, even though they took risks back in the day with NYPD Blue where they were showing butt cheeks. And remember when back then that was the most scandalous taboo thing that you could do. But I was like curious, is like, okay, so what were y'all planning to do? They were talking about it was gonna be a prequel where it was like we're gonna get into the backstory of Jason and his father and Pamela. And I was like, can y'all just keep the shit simple? Like to me, if you're gonna do Friday the 13th, the formula that has always worked with Friday the 13th is the fact that, okay, so you have Jason in the woods, camp counselors, whatever, whatever, and then Jason just goes and there's always creative ways to kill. Now, if you're going to do a TV show of Friday the 13th, I'm thinking what you do with that is, okay, so now if you have a show, you basically just take the kids, give them more backstory, make them interesting, you flesh out the characters more, so that way when Jason goes with his machete and starts hacking up all these kids that you've gotten so comfortable with and you've gotten to know, the kills seem more impactful. So I feel like that's what they should have done with that. You can like every season, a new crop of kids at a campsite or wherever you want to set it up, and Jason goes and does his thing. He sets up traps, he kills kids, and all this other stuff. But you just make the characters. You flesh out the characters more. You can't do what you did back in the 80s, which is you only got 90 minutes to tell a story. You have all these horny teenagers with vapid personalities, all stereotypes of what you think that teenagers are, and then they're just killed. So that way you feel like, okay, so now I don't care if how they were killed. And the worst part about in the 80s too was that there was so much because of the freaking FCC and how they would go in on a lot of those, because they were really pushing the boundaries of horror and the kills and stuff. But then you would have people go and they would have to edit out all these kills and shit, so that way, so and then it would ruin all the work that were put into a lot of these films. But now it seems like violence more acceptable. You could take more risks in regards of like violence and kills and showing gore and all the other stuff on TV and film. So now you can take that, you can kind of bring in more of the stuff that was shunned back in the 80s. It seems more acceptable now. People have kind of relaxed more. They still look uptight on the sex, but being that it's going to be on Peacock, you could take more of a risk with that because that's a streaming service. So I just look at it as like, just, yeah, to me, in my opinion, I just feel like what they need to do with this franchise, I don't know who they're going to pick to be a part of it because, I like A24. A24 has definitely been doing the thing in regards of pushing out great content. The last A24 project I saw, I mean, I think Maxine is going to be is part of A24 too, right? So maybe they could bring in the director of the X Maxine, what's his name? Ty something. I forget his last name. But maybe bring him in and come up with some ideas. So because I like what he's done, what he does with horror. Maybe they can bring him in and develop some ideas or whatever. I don't know who they could pick. Maybe I just threw his name out there. But um yeah, so as a fan of Friday the 13th, I need new Friday the 13th content. It has been 15 years since we have seen Friday the 13th on the big screen. We have not gotten a movie. That was the Jared Padalecki reboot that they did, which I will say this. The thing I loved about that film, the opening sequence was spot on, perfect. But then after that, the movie kind of fell apart for me. There were parts of the film that I was like, okay, some of them kills are cool or whatever. But I did like, but then they were trying to make Jason a little empathetic. I was like, no, I don't like. Oh, you remind me of my mommy. Like, no, I didn't like that angle. But I did like the first 15 minutes. Or maybe bring Marcus Nispel in. Well, but then again, he did do that movie, and I don't know if that resonated with a lot of people. And that was the last time I seen. I think I seen Willa Ford on in a movie because remember she got hit in the head with the machete, and you saw her tits come up from the water, and then she went back under. Which I was like, okay. But that was like your typical Friday 13th. But anyway, so I say all this to say, to wrap this up, because I feel like I've been going on a little too long for this. Like, as a fan of Friday the 13th, I really want y'all to get this together. I really hope that we don't wind up in a whole situation where it's in an entanglement of we can't get this film made, we can't get a TV show made. Maybe they need to just, while they're working on the show, can y'all just like churn out a really quick Friday the 13th movie or something or another and just get that in theater just to get the momentum and stuff going? But if you're going to do a TV show, I'd say like, look, I'd be getting mad at Netflix for doing 8 episodes. I'm like, y'all could at least bring it up to a 10 or maybe a 12 with some of y'all shows. But maybe with this, I think this would be good for like a 6 to 8 episode type situation where it's like y'all don't spend too long with, because I don't know how y'all make that interesting. I feel like flesh out the characters. A good 6 episode situation works with Friday the 13th if you're going to do a series because it's like we don't want to spend too much time where you're developing these characters or whatever. You want to give it enough time, let the campers do whatever, and then have Jason do his thing where it's like maybe you get 2, maybe 3 kills tops in the episodes because you don't want it to end up in a situation where it gets a little too bonkers. Like, first of all, the Scream series never worked for me when it was on MTV. And then I feel like Chucky is getting ridiculous too. So, yeah. So I say 6 to 8 episodes. Do what y'all need to do. And please let's get this thing out here at least by 2025 because it's been too damn long since we got the Friday 13th franchise on our big screens.